I'm Dr. Duke with the New American and joined today by our international correspondent, Alex Newman. Alex, thanks for your time.
Thanks so much for having me, Duke. Great to be with you.
Well, in the week after the 4th of July, the 6th of July to be precise, a new edition of the New American magazine is released, and you and I both have articles in that magazine. So let us talk about your cover story and my secondary story. Let's talk about your story, which is what is really going on? Who is really behind the rioting in the American public sphere right now? Who are the players who are making this happen?
Yeah, and that's really the main focus of my story. And so what I do is I zero in on the main organizations on the ground that are fomenting the unrest, that are stirring up riots and looting and violence, and then also the organizations and the individuals who are funding that. And so we focus in particular on three organizations on the ground primarily, and we talk about some of the others involved too, but you have Antifa, which President Trump has declared a terrorist organization. You have Black Lives Matter, which is a Marxist organization, and you don't have to dig very deep to find that. You can just go to their website; they'll proudly tell you. In fact, they say it in interviews, right? And then the last one is called the Sunrise Movement, which is a grassroots organization, supposedly, of young people. They're out there recruiting children in government schools to come serve as useful, brainwashed idiots, to kind of serve as a battering ram in the breaking down of our civilization. And then, beyond that, we look at some of the information we have on them. For example, the Sunrise Movements, they were planning these riots in Minnesota long before George Floyd was killed. In fact, they were doing webinars, they were plotting this defund the police movement. One of their big agenda items is the Green New Deal. So we expose all that. And then we get into where is the money coming from, and it's not surprising. It's also not hard to figure out. The documents, the data is all out there. It is racist billionaires, almost without exception, right? The largest funder of the Sunrise Movement, for example, is the Rockefeller Family Foundation. Now, the Rockefellers, now interesting, they're funding anti-racist protests. They were some of the biggest financiers of racism throughout the 20th century. They were funding Nazi racial pseudoscience quackery. They were funding Joseph Mengele before he started his experiments on children in Auschwitz. They were funding eugenics. They were funding all this kind of racial pseudoscience, claiming that whites were superior. So the idea that they now suddenly grew a conscience and now they're trying to fight racism is ludicrous. And also they made all their money in oil, which is funny that they're funding the Sunrise Movement, which one of their big claims to fame is fighting for the Green New Deal and to transform the economy to stop fossil fuels. Then you have Soros, obviously funding the Black Lives Matter movement, and you have this weird convergence of communist groups and super capitalists funding them. And it doesn't make sense on the surface. So what we do in the article is explain to you this has been going on for a long time. It's not new, and there are very specific objectives that they're pursuing, Duke.
So this is a complicated subject, and I know that probably the average TNA reader is up to speed on some of these issues, but not maybe the general reader. So the Black Lives Matter, if you go to their own website, I mean, this is not complicated. They're talking about breaking apart the nuclear family. They want to unmake gender norms. They want to get rid of male and female. They are openly and avowedly Marxist. They make it very clear that what they want to do is bring down Trump, they say. They want to replace the government in America with a socialist Marxist government. So that's obvious, and you can find that pretty easily. Antifa, I think, is all of those things without even pretending to be something else, right? I mean, we've already figured out that Antifa is not anti-fascist, that they are using the tools of fascism to do exactly what Black Lives Matter wants to do. No, neither of those things are surprising, although it surprises me that Antifa, the Trump administration took some heat for branding them a terrorist organization, but they are. But given the same objective and aims of Black Lives Matter, almost the same profile, how do you make one a terrorist organization and not the other one?
That's a very good question, and my guess is politics was probably involved more than anything. But I really do think it's time for law enforcement, for prosecutors, for state attorneys general to start investigating these things. What we have here is very clearly subversion. This is an effort to overthrow our system of government and replace it with a totalitarian new system of government. And to be clear, there are ways to change the system. If people are unhappy with the system, we have legal, lawful means of doing so. It includes voting. It includes constitutional amendments. It includes rewriting the Constitution if that's what people want to do. We have an Article 5 process. I think it's a terrible idea, but it is possible. When you get into the realm of trying to violently overthrow the system, using violence and destruction of property and killing to try to advance your political objectives, there's a very specific name for that. It's called terrorism. It's called subversion. It's called revolution. And these people need to be prosecuted. But they have friends in high places. And so what we're seeing here, actually, Duke, is the use of a very old communist strategy. It actually helped enslave multiple nations. It was pioneered in Czechoslovakia, which managed to fall under communist slavery without a shot being fired. Very similar thing to what we're seeing now. So you have the pressure from below, which is the rioters, the looters, the protesters, funded by Soros, funded by Rockefeller, funded by the Ford Foundation, and all these mega billionaire foundations and individuals. And then you have the pressure from above. So you have actual communists and Marxists within the UN saying, "Oh, look at the protesters. We need fundamental reform of America. We need to address the root causes of socioeconomic inequality." Fancy ways of saying you need communism in America. Then you have the Democrats in Congress, many of them, taking a knee and putting on this, this African scarf that ironically comes from the Ashanti tribe, which was known for, among other things, selling fellow Africans into slavery. So it's a very carefully orchestrated operation with a goal of taking down our nation, rewriting and completely undermining our history, our understanding of ourselves, and ultimately smashing individual liberty and moving us toward this global system that they're trying to bring in.
Well, it's really interesting when you think about it. I hope the people watching recognize that this is not something that's just emanated out of the last couple of years, and it even precedes Trump by decades, what they've been trying to do. But I just start with the election of Donald Trump. This coup, and I think you're right for calling it a coup, it is treason. It is an attempt to overthrow a sitting government. It started with the election in earnest of Donald Trump. Not for 1 second at any time during the last 4 years has the American left or even the Democrat Party accepted the lawful election of Donald Trump. And you think about before there were riots in the streets, you had this fake impeachment, you had this nothing burger Russian collusion story, you had all of the fake racial outrage, things that Trump never said. There's good people on both sides. It has been an insurrection carried out and abetted by the media, the mainstream media, to unmake this president from the moment he was elected. Never once have the Democrats accepted that this was a legitimate election or that he was a legitimate president, and more importantly, that those of us who reject the progressive new wave, that we have the right to be represented by politicians who do not see things the way they do.
That's exactly right, Duke. That's exactly right. And so this is, to be clear, this is illegal. This is unlawful. This is criminal. This is a national security threat. And to build on all of that, just very, very recently, we released an interview with Josiah Cruz. She's a Venezuelan woman who's running for Congress in Atlanta, who has probably one of the most in-depth understandings of what's going on in Latin America and how that translates into America. And what she explained, and we actually show the proof, the videos of these people talking about these things. There's a network of Latin American communist regimes, socialist dictatorships, including the Venezuelans, the Bolivians, the Cubans, the Nicaraguans, and on and on and on, who are actually orchestrating a war on America. They infiltrated their agents into the United States, and they're bragging about this in public, right? It's amazing that our media doesn't pick up on this. Oh, wait, no, it's not. But you would think our intelligence agencies, our military would at least be doing something about this. Total silence. And so what we're seeing here is an orchestrated, very well-planned, coordinated effort. It's a war on the United States. It's designed to completely and utterly annihilate our system of government, our free political institutions. And as long as we don't understand that we're in a war, as long as you have a big part of the population running around thinking this is about racial justice or police brutality or something like that, we are going to be defeated in a way that I think is going to be absolutely catastrophic. So we need to be clear here. This is a war against us, against the United States, against our freedom. This is not about police. And, the communists themselves say this. The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. And we're seeing that now. It's not about George Floyd. It's not about police brutality. It's not about if it was about Black Lives Matter, they'd be protesting at Planned Parenthood. Slaughtering thousands of unborn black babies every day, founded by a eugenicist who wanted to disappear black people from the gene pool. It's not about black lives. It's about overthrowing our system and reducing us to serfdom, and we've got to treat it as such.
Pay attention. The revolutionaries went from protesting police to protesting statues of Confederate soldiers in 2 weeks. Confederate soldiers to protesting the statues of our founding fathers, and even now abolitionists to now opposing literally the 4th of July, which is being condemned even as we speak, the Independence Day, and the American flag, and Mount Rushmore. So this isn't going to stop anytime soon. It's going to get a lot worse. Alex, thanks for your time today.